My wife let her bridesmaids vote on whether we should actually get married that day. I almost walked out of my own wedding. Seriously. I was standing outside a cramped hotel suite at 2A, hearing my fiancé's bridesmaids discuss whether or not I was worthy enough for her to go through with the ceremony that was supposed to happen in less than 10 hours. And the craziest part, my fiancé, Taylor, was inviting them to vote on it. Like, an actual vote on whether our marriage should even happen the next day. This wasn't a joke or a bit from a cheesy romantic comedy. It was my life. And it felt like I'd stumbled onto the set of some twisted reality show. I know it sounds ridiculous right off the bat, but let me back up and give some context. My name's Ryan, and I've always considered myself a pretty normal guy. I work in software development. I like taking my dog for long hikes on weekends. And until recently, I firmly believed that if two people love each other enough to get engaged, then they obviously trust each other with the biggest decisions in life. Turns out, trust can be more complicated than that. Taylor and I had been dating for about 3 years before I proposed. She was, still is despite everything, this warm, vibrant soul who lights up a room just by walking in. We met in the most unexpected way. I was grocery shopping after work, still wearing my nerdy coder t-shirt, trying to find decent avocados in a nearly empty produce section. She was reaching for the same avocado. Our hands bumped, we laughed, and we ended up chatting right there in the aisle about how picky we both were about fruit. For some inexplicable reason, it felt like meeting an old friend. We left the store with each other's numbers, hearts fluttering in that hopeful way you only see in movies. Things took off quickly. We bonded over our mutual love of hiking, strong coffee, and a shared weakness for homemade blueberry muffins. Within months, she introduced me to her family. Her mom, Donna, was welcoming and sweet, though I got the sense there was some unspoken tension between them. Her dad, Michael, had passed away years earlier, so it was just the two of them for a long time. But as warm as her mom was, it was Taylor's core group of friends, Alyssa, Morgan, Chelsea, and Ashley, who really felt like her true family. They were a tight-knit pack who had known one another since high school. At first, I thought it was adorable how close they were. When I joined their group for a weekend beach trip, it was like stepping into a sorority but with grown-up responsibilities. They teased each other constantly, but beneath that was real loyalty and affection. It was a bit overwhelming for me because I'd always had a much smaller circle. My best friend is Luke, a buddy from college. Beyond that, I mostly keep to myself. But the girls embraced me with open arms. At least it seemed so, and I was glad Taylor had them in her life. Over time, though, I began to notice how deeply Taylor relied on their input for practically everything. If we were deciding on a vacation spot, she'd group text the girls for suggestions. If we had a minor fight, she'd share the blow-by-blow with them before she and I had even resolved it. I told myself it was normal. She'd grown up without her dad, her mom wasn't always present, so these girls were her emotional safety net. She trusted them, maybe even needed them. And usually, it didn't bother me. I figured a bit of group advice never hurt anyone. When I proposed to her at sunset on a cliffside, yes, it was dramatic, but that's just how I roll. She said yes through tears and laughter. We went to dinner right after, and she texted her bridesmaids the news. Within 15 minutes, her phone was blowing up with congratulatory messages, squeals of excitement, wedding planning memes. If I'm honest, I thought it was great that her friends were as excited as we were. But that was the turning point when they started getting involved in literally every aspect of our wedding. I expected some of it, picking a dress, bridesmaid colors, that kind of thing. Where it got tricky was how their opinions seeped into stuff I thought was between me and Taylor only. For instance, I'd suggested a small mountain lodge for the wedding venue. We both loved the outdoors, and the lodge had a gorgeous view. But after one group text, Taylor came back to me and said, "Alyssa thinks a mountain lodge wedding is boring. She read it's outdated." I asked if that was how Taylor felt. She shrugged. "Well, the girls think it's not the best idea." That stung a little, but I tried to brush it off. We ended up booking a place closer to the city. It wasn't a big deal, right? Then came the finances. We talked about how we'd split wedding expenses. My parents were pitching in, and her mom offered some help too. But out of nowhere, Taylor asked, "Morgan said she thinks we should put everything on a credit card to get points, then pay it off with gift money we'll receive. What do you think?" I tried not to roll my eyes. I told her I'd prefer we not rack up a massive bill assuming gift money would bail us out. That sparked an argument, with Taylor defending Morgan's logic. We eventually compromised, but it made me realize how deeply her friends' voices influenced our big decisions. Still, I loved Taylor, and I believed we could handle any friction. I was in the thick of wedding planning, stepping aside whenever the bridesmaids wanted to weigh in on floral arrangements or color palettes. I didn't mind. It was the actual day-to-day relationship that mattered, not the color of napkins or the brand of champagne. And up until about 48 hours before the wedding, I'd have told you with confidence that even though she was a bit too reliant on her friends, Taylor was ultimately committed to me. We'd reserved a quaint, historic hotel for the entire weekend. The plan was for Taylor and the bridesmaids to stay in the largest suite, while I and my groomsmen had rooms down the hall. The ceremony would be in the hotel's garden, with a reception under a big white tent. Everything was set up. My buddies Luke and Jared had been giving me pep talks. Dude, you're gonna crush this husband thing. Don't freak out. Even my mom had flown in from Florida, excited to see her only son tie the knot. But on the night before the wedding, I was too restless to sleep. I left my room around 1:30 a.m. to wander the corridors, just to calm my nerves. The hallway lights were dim, and I could hear distant laughter coming from the suite where Taylor and her friends were. I figured they were having some late-night bachelorette chat. I didn't plan to eavesdrop, but as I neared the door, I heard my name. Curiosity got the better of me. What I heard made my stomach drop. Taylor's voice, hushed but urgent. I just keep thinking, what if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life? Then I heard Morgan chime in. If your gut's telling you something, we can decide tonight. Alyssa added, yeah, if you're really not sure, we can take a vote. Let majority rule. That way it's not all on you, Tay. Take a vote. My heart started hammering. Then Taylor said something like, I know it's crazy, but maybe it would help me decide. I can't do this tomorrow if I'm not 100% sure. And then I heard the actual words. Okay, who's in favor of me going through with the wedding? Hands up. The volume shifted as they rustled around, presumably raising their hands or not. I couldn't tell who was for or against. All I knew was that I suddenly felt like my entire relationship was being decided by people who weren't even in it. I was furious, but also deeply hurt. We were supposed to be partners. How could she let them have that kind of power over our future? I didn't barge in. I probably should have, but I was paralyzed. I heard Ashley say, look, if you're seriously unsure, maybe you need more time. There's no shame in postponing. Chelsea murmured agreement. Another girl asked, what if Ryan's not the person we all think he is? Tay, you said yourself he can be closed off sometimes. Taylor sniffled and said, he's not perfect, but no one is. I don't know if I'm ready. My head started spinning. Was this the first time she'd actually admitted these doubts? Feeling like my presence would just blow everything up, I left. I went back to my room and closed the door quietly. My best man Luke was half asleep, but he stirred when I came in. Hey man, what's wrong? He asked groggily. I just said, Taylor's not sure she wants to marry me. He blinked, sat up. What the hell do you mean? I told him what I'd overheard, feeling numb and almost disconnected from the words coming out of my mouth. Luke's eyes went wide and he wrapped me in a hug. Kind of awkward for two grown dudes, but I appreciated it. We stayed up the rest of the night talking, me replaying bits of what I'd heard. Luke was angry on my behalf, but he tried to see it from Taylor's side. She's probably just freaking out, he said. Cold feet is normal, but a vote? That's messed up, man. I nodded, silent. My emotions oscillated between heartbreak and fury. Around 5 in the morning, we heard the bridesmaids noisily head to their rooms. I guess their vote concluded at some point. I dozed off for maybe an hour. Then the wedding day dawned. My stomach was in knots. I decided I needed to talk to Taylor in private. But the morning was chaotic. Hairdressers, makeup artists, the florist running around, my mom asking me last-minute questions about seating arrangements. Eventually, at around 9 a.m., component placement. I managed to slip away and knock on the door of Taylor's suite. Alyssa opened it, still in pajamas, hair in rollers, glowering at me. She's not ready to see you, she said, arms crossed. I'm her fiancé, I snapped. I need to talk to her. Alyssa hesitated, but Morgan appeared behind her, gave me a measured look, then said, we're just trying to help her get ready. She'll talk to you soon. I clenched my jaw. Tell her I'm not walking down that aisle if I can't speak to her first. There was an awkward pause, then footsteps in the hallway. It was Taylor's mom, Donna, who said softly, girls, let them talk. They parted reluctantly, and I entered the main room. Taylor was in a robe, her hair partially styled, face puffy like she'd been crying all night. When she saw me, her eyes went round, and she sent the bridesmaids a pleading look. Donna said, I'll give you two some space, and ushered them all into the adjoining bedroom. We stood there, silent. I noticed her hands trembling. Taylor, I began quietly, I heard you last night. The vote. The doubts. She swallowed, tears welling up. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to get that far. I was just scared. I've never been so scared. I stared at her, waiting for an explanation. She continued in a shaky voice, All my life, I've leaned on them. My friends. They've been there for every major decision. I got overwhelmed thinking, what if we're not ready? What if we haven't talked about certain things enough? Children, finances, everything. She wiped at her eyes. I talked to the girls, and one thing led to another. I didn't actually want them to have the final say, but it felt like if they all said, yes, go for it, I could trust that I wasn't making a huge mistake. My chest tightened. So it doesn't matter how I feel? It's about their vote? She broke down crying. No, that's not it. I love you, Ryan. I swear I do. I've always made decisions in a group. My dad died when I was young and Mom wasn't around much. Alyssa, Morgan, they became my family. I know it's messed up that I let it go so far, but please believe me, I never wanted to hurt you. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to find steady ground. I'd never seen her like this, so panicked, so uncertain. What am I supposed to do with this, Taylor? We're getting married in a few hours. Our families are here. We've spent so much on everything. But if you aren't sure, I don't want to force it. She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm sure that I love you. I'm not sure about me, about whether I can be a good wife or handle all the expectations. This wedding became so big so fast, and the girls have been in my ear about caution, about not rushing, about how I could still walk away. So I had this meltdown, and I guess I wanted them to tell me it was safe to marry you. I felt my anger soften into something more like pity. I hated that she was so unsure, but I also hated the idea that her friends were fueling the fire. Taylor, I said, voice shaking, I want you to marry me because you choose me, not because a group of people greenlights it. If this is what you want, let's do it. If not, I'll walk away. But I can't handle the idea that you're letting them vote on my worthiness. Ato. She nodded miserably. I know. Please, I need a few minutes to calm down. I promise I'll talk to them. I'll shut this down. I need to get through the morning. I looked at her for a long moment. Despite my frustration, I still saw the woman I fell in love with. The one who'd made me laugh in a grocery store aisle. Okay, I said. I'll be in my room. We're supposed to start at noon. If you can't do this, just tell me. Don't blindside me at the altar. She gave a sad little nod and I left. The next couple of hours were a blur of my groomsmen trying to lighten the mood, guests arriving, and me basically going through the motions. I hadn't heard from Taylor again, and part of me was prepared for the worst. My mind spiraled with potential scenarios. She doesn't show up at the altar. She shows up but says she can't do it. I almost wanted her to text me, just so I'd have some clarity. Finally, it was time. The officiant led me and my groomsmen to the garden, where rows of chairs were set up. Soft music played. My mom sat in the front row, looking simultaneously proud and anxious. The bridesmaids started walking down the aisle, one by one. Morgan, Alyssa, Chelsea, Ashley, each of them glanced at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Maybe it was guilt, maybe pity. Then the music shifted and everyone stood. Taylor appeared at the end of the aisle. My breath caught in my chest. She looked beautiful, though her face was still a bit puffy. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, everything else vanished. I saw fear there, but also a quiet determination. She walked slowly forward, and each step felt like a question. Are we really doing this? When she reached me, I noticed her hands were shaking, so I took them gently, giving a tiny squeeze. The officiant began. My heart pounded so loudly that I barely registered the first part of the ceremony. At one point, the officiant asked if anyone present objected to the marriage. My muscles tensed, expecting one of her bridesmaids to pipe up. But they stayed silent, faces stoic. Then came the vows. Mine were straightforward. I'd prepared them weeks ago. I spoke about how meeting her was a moment that changed my life, how I promised to stand by her in times of strength and times of doubt. My voice wobbled at the mention of doubt, but I kept going. She bit her lip, tears gathering. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath, trembling. Ryan, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. I'm sorry I let fear cloud my mind. I'm sorry I let other voices become louder than my own. But I'm standing here today because I choose you. Not because anyone voted or told me it was okay. Because I know, deep in my heart, that you're the person I want to build a life with. I promise I'll learn to trust us and not lean so heavily on others. You're my partner, my best friend, and I'm so thankful you're willing to stand by me. Her voice caught on the last words and tears slipped down her cheeks. My anger melted. All I felt was relief. She'd shown up. She was telling me she chose me. The officiant declared us husband and wife, and we kissed. Applause erupted, though it felt surreal, like a dream. I half expected to wake up alone in my bed, but I tasted the salt of her tears on my lips and knew it was real. At the reception, people smiled and congratulated us, oblivious to how close we'd come to disaster. My buddy Luke raised a glass in a toast, praising our unshakable bond, while I forced a smile, thinking how a single conversation hours earlier almost destroyed it. Throughout the night, I caught glimpses of the bridesmaids whispering amongst themselves. A couple times, Morgan or Alyssa would approach me as if to say something, then stop, turning away. I wasn't ready to discuss it anyway. Taylor stuck by my side, barely leaving me to breathe, as if afraid I'd vanish if she let me go. During the father-daughter dance, Taylor's mom gave a short speech about how proud she was of her daughter. I knew there were complicated feelings there, but I was so emotionally spent I barely registered the details. Taylor and I had our first dance, a slow sway to a folk song we both loved, and she whispered in my ear, "I promise. No more group votes." I just squeezed her hand. By the end of the night, we were dead on our feet. We stumbled up to our honeymoon suite in the hotel, left with a swirl of thoughts about what came next. Alone in the quiet room, still in our wedding clothes, we both broke down into tears. Hers from guilt and anxiety, mine from the pent-up stress and heartbreak of nearly losing her. We talked for hours, lying on the bed, wedding finery wrinkled beneath us, about what went wrong, about how we could fix it. She admitted that while she leaned on her friends for everything, she never realized how disrespectful that might be to me, or how it made me feel. "I was just trying to protect myself," she said softly. "But I ended up hurting you." I told her I forgave her, but I also made it clear this would be a long road of learning to make decisions as a couple, not as a committee. She nodded, sniffing, and promised to set boundaries. We fell asleep holding hands, still wearing half our formal attire, too tired to change. In the weeks that followed, things weren't magically perfect. We moved into that weird post-wedding zone, where we were technically newlyweds, but there was a huge emotional wound that needed tending. Taylor took active steps to tell her bridesmaids that certain things were now just between her and me. Morgan didn't take it well. She seemed to think I was forcing Taylor to shut them out. Alyssa was more apologetic, admitting they'd all gotten carried away that night. I suggested couples therapy. Taylor agreed. We found a counselor named Dr. Green, who was gentle but firm. She helped Taylor see how her childhood, losing her dad, and having an emotionally distant mom had hardwired her to seek external validation. Dr. Green also helped me cope with the betrayal I felt, because even though Taylor had said yes at the altar, the memory of that vote stung. Week by week, we learned how to open up, to talk about what frightened us, and to have conversations that didn't involve a third party telling Taylor what to do. We also spent a lot of time re-examining our future plans. Did we want kids soon or wait a few years? Where did we see ourselves living if my job changed or if she decided to pursue graduate school? Step by step, we hashed it all out, just the two of us, then told our families and friends afterward. It felt liberating, forging these plans on our own terms. Every now and then, though, I'd catch Taylor texting her bridesmaids, looking anxious, and I'd worry we were slipping back. But to her credit, she stopped short of letting them steer her decisions. She'd show me the messages, we'd talk, and I'd see she was just sharing news, not asking for permission. There was this one moment, maybe 4 months after the wedding, when Morgan organized a brunch. Usually, it would have been all the girls plus me tagging along if I felt like it. This time, Taylor declined the invitation, telling Morgan she wanted to spend the weekend with me on a short camping trip. It was a seemingly minor choice, but for Taylor, it was huge. She was prioritizing us, not her friend circle. The backlash from Morgan was immediate. She accused me of isolating Taylor. But Taylor stood her ground, saying something like, "I love you, but I have a husband now, and we need our own time." That was the day I realized maybe we'd be okay. It hasn't been a perfect fairy tale. Even now, nearly a year later, I still grapple with the memory of overhearing her wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But we keep working through it. Every couple has some crisis or baggage they have to overcome, and this was ours. Honestly, I believe it forced us to communicate in ways we never had before. We're more open, more honest, and we're forging a relationship that's truly ours, not shaped by the groupthink of her bridesmaids. We've learned to laugh about the madness sometimes. There was a moment a few weeks ago when we were planning a joint birthday party for my mom and her mom. Taylor absent-mindedly started, "Let me just check with the," and stopped herself mid-sentence. She turned red and laughed. Let me think about how we want to do it. That's become our silly code. Check with the, oops. It reminds us of that precarious night and how close we came to losing each other. People ask sometimes how married life is, and we usually just say, "It's good. Challenging, but good." Nobody outside our immediate circle really knows the drama that almost derailed the wedding. They see our social media posts with honeymoon pictures and happy couple snapshots, never guessing the behind-the-scenes meltdown. I wonder if, down the line, we'll openly share the story. Maybe it could help another couple see the warning signs of letting too many outsiders into their relationship. For now, though, we're just living day by day, building trust. When I look at Taylor on a lazy Sunday morning, her hair a mess, eyes sleepy, I realize she's still that warm, vibrant person I fell for in the grocery store. She had a moment of weakness. Well, a series of moments, but she recognized it and fought to grow from it. And I chose to fight for her too, rather than walk away. I won't lie. There were a few hours that night when the pain was so raw I questioned everything. But I'm glad I stayed. Even though we started our marriage on shaky ground, we discovered that real love can survive a brutal storm if both people are willing to repair the damage. We're not perfect, but we're learning. And if some random day I catch wind of another vote being taken behind my back, I'll face it head on. Because the two of us, Ryan and Taylor, are the ones who get to decide our future now. Not a room full of bridesmaids at 2A. Millie. That's how it should have been in the first place, and that's how it's going to be from now on. So, yeah, that's the story of how my fiancé almost let her bridesmaids decide whether we got married. It was painful, confusing, and honestly sort of absurd. But the important thing is, in the end, we didn't let the vote define us. We found our own voices and we said, I do, together. And if there's any moral to this mess, it's that real commitment means choosing each other no matter what the crowd says. We were lucky enough to figure that out just in time.